That's good. So that's what Delphi provides, and it's good, but I think it's not really enough. There are things that can help you progress much faster. One of the things is adopting jQuery in the client side rather than just relying on plain JavaScript as Delphi does. I mean, it's okay that Delphi doesn't force you to use a library. They just are neutral. Anything will do. But then if you use the library, you gain a lot of advantage. My idea is that using JavaScript without a library is like creating a Delphi application calling the Windows API. It's possible, but you don't want to do it. It is that different. I mean, using a library or not using a library has the same difference as create window X or t-button.create. That's much better. So it's a big difference. So I tend to use jQuery. There are other libraries out there that are very nice. There are many libraries out there that are very nice. That's just one of the options. One of the things that jQuery helps you doing, and I do have already to use, now which one? XE2. One of the things that I don't terribly like in the generated code, if we go look into the reverse string, well, in the classic one, is that in the UI, there was the reverse button, and the reverse button had the JavaScript connected to it. So we were really tying in the behavior to the user interface, which means that if you give that piece of code to an external graphical designer, which is what you might want to do for a web application, it's very easy. He will mess up things. And then say, well, but I don't want a button. I want a graphic object. I want something else. And you might have to work around differences in the local event handlers and other things. Here, the interface is kind of pure. Oh, I have this input and this button. Now, I could replace it with an image or anything. The only thing that I need to keep is the ID. The IDs are valuable. This is the way you identify things. So yes, you have to respect the IDs. That's the only thing a graphic designer has to do, respect my IDs. Anything else will do. Want to replace that button with an image, with another component, with an edit. I don't know, click on an edit. Whatever. I mean, we don't care. As long as reverse button is the ID of that element, of the DOM element, we are fine. Because separately, what we are doing in our code is we are saying somewhere here, that's the standard. I haven't updated everything in the code, but that's the standard initialization function in jQuery. Say, hey, grab this reverse button and install at runtime a click event handler and do this. So we are separately attaching the behavior, the event handler, to those components. But again, it's called reverse button, but it doesn't need to be a button. And JavaScript and jQuery provides something that JavaScript does not provide, that everything is clickable. Everything is clickable. So it's not a paragraph is clickable, a div is clickable, a span is clickable, an image is clickable with the same interface. JavaScript has kind of 25 different ways to click on different things, and it's kind of a mess. So you have a uniform interface regardless of the actual UI. So you really gain in terms of separation from the UI to the code behind. And the other thing you might want to do is move this to a separate JavaScript file. So you have the HTML, which is just the HTML, and the JavaScript is a separate file. I haven't done it here, but I do it in production code. So in the HTML file, there is no JavaScript, it's just the HTML. So that's something, again, a graphic designer can mess up with a bit without too much trouble. Okay? Now, the code implementation is slightly different, because now we can use jQuery to refer to the value field. Again, this gives us some more flexibility, and this we say value field.val to read and .val to write the value, passing it as parameter. So this is just a different syntax, but the fact we are separating the UI from the code, that's a key, a core difference in terms of the architecture. Okay. So let's do one more thing to this program. because I still haven't done it. Okay, what if we want to extend it? Let's do one small extension. We get to the server. Oh, it has been extended. There is a reverse string too. Fine, that's great. But let it extend it further and have a function add a, b, integer, and returns an integer. Okay, so we just want to add something. So that's the server-side extra method. We have to provide the code. A plus b. And that's our Delphi application. Now I'm going to change this reverse string. Oh, we can add it alongside, whatever. So we're going to get here. Oh, let's get into our table. Let's create another line. And we have, let's call it A. Let's call it B. Very bad. Let's call this add. Nasty way of doing things, but that's going to be 3. That's going to be 4. And that's going to be add. So we have created a marvelous HTML page. And then what we have to do, we have to install another event handler, and I'll do it in a slightly different way. So this time I'll just say, hey, we also need, and when we click on add, what we want to do, I'm not even calling a separate function. I'm just saying grab me, it's almost there. Grab me A and get the value. Oi, it's case sensitive. Plus, no, not plus. So we need to do server methods. And we wish I had a syntax helper. Add the value of A and the value of B. And we can take the result and save it inside A. Okay, so A receives the result of adding A to B. And I'm going to mess up with the syntax. Okay, so this is this is this, and closed, and this is this one. Well, maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, I don't know. Let's run it. Save. Ah, no, wait. Is it going to do the deployment? Now, there is another change that I only partially like in XE2. I should be working here, which is since we can compile for Win32 and Win64, there is a deployment for the JavaScript and images and the templates. Oh, it seems it did it because it did it one. So every time you compile, it compiles and then copies the source code files to the destination folder. If not, you get in trouble because you change something and it doesn't change because you're using a different version at runtime. And at the beginning, I was very confused. So let's open the browser. Hey, we can add 3 and 4, and we get, okay, yeah, we don't get the right thing. Well, almost. Anyway, let's keep it as it is. We get result 7 rather than 7. Yeah. Somehow the result extraction is in the add function is wrong, which is odd. Server methods add. Anyway, I'm not going to fix it, whatever. But that's the idea. You provide features on the server side, make the calls from the JavaScript application. Now, let me show you one more example. Okay. Now, this is fine, but it's extremely time-consuming because you have to, every time you want to do something, you create a new server-side thing, you have to create the user interface, you have to do lots of work connecting the various bits and pieces. So what I've done is partially in some demos, but then creating a library, creating a lot of automatic behavior. At least you get the default behavior automatically, and then you might want to customize it manually for creating objects and showing them in the user interface. So if we close this demo and terminate it and save the change and open JObjects, okay, let's look at this code. This has, well, kind of useless data module. It has a simple data structure. It's called tMyData. And it has the 4 methods. And the naming convention is very specific. MyData is used to read something, is the getter. Update is the post. Cancel is the delete operation. And accept is create a new object operation, is the put operation. So you use the same URLs for these 4, but you change the REST method. Now, the JavaScript proxy has the same 4 method with the same mapping at the reverse, so you basically don't get to see it. But if you want to call this manually, you have to change the HTTP request and use MyData as the URL for each of those 4. So this can retrieve a list of objects out of a dictionary and then read and write each object by name. Okay? So that's the server, and that's the user interface. And I'll need to show you a couple of things. So I'm going to open the JavaScript console here and do a refresh. So get everything properly set up. Well, I've created a little bit of it. So these are a list of objects. These 2 objects are created automatically when the program starts, sample and test. And we can get one and has a value, and we can do an update, and we change the value. Okay, so let's actually look at what happens when we, wait, what's this? Why do I have only the last one? Nope. Let's look at this view. Okay, this was the GET request. It's a GET method with this URL. MyData, what we want to do, test, is the actual object is passed in the URL itself. And the response was the data structure for the object. The following request worked at the opposite. It was a post operation. So the data, the JSON, was actually in the request. And notice this cookie. This is what identifies the session at the user, at the browser level. In fact, if we look into the resources and the cookies, we can see, wait, where's the cookie? No, the site has. Oh, I haven't enabled the, it's a runtime cookie. It's not saved in the browser. It stays in the page. You have to use a setting in the JavaScript file to make it persistent in the browser. So it's an option. That's not enabled in this demo. So that's the idea. What we can do, we can create a new object, and another one, and grab one, and delete it. So we can do real processing, and that's interesting. But there are a couple of other things that are interesting. One is that to create this operation, what I have to do, I have an object with 2 fields, and I want to map it to 2 edits in the user interface. So 2 fields, 2 edits. Now, that's easy, but we have 20 fields, 20 edits. That's a lot of work. So what I've created is a JavaScript file that does the mapping. It has a function, tMyData2form, that will take the object and copy each field to the corresponding form field. And at the opposite, form2myData will do this operation. Now, the same project can also work on a bigger data structure that has way more fields. And again, we have a similar mapping that now is it's a long work, write all of this code. Okay? Now, this is called UIMapper.js. And if we go in the source code of this application, which is JObjects. And look at it, it's not there, because this file does not exist. What the program does, when it receives a request for that given file, UI mapper.js, it generates one. So it generates a mapper for tMyData and a mapper for tCompany data. This uses RTTI, say, okay, which are the published properties of the class? Let's create a mapper for each of the published properties. And we expect to have a corresponding field in the user interface. We look at the HTML behind this page, which is company. There is some support code, but there's no user interface. There are the buttons, but there is no UI. What it does, it will use the same set of rules, the RTTI looking to the published properties, and generate fields with a given structure and given mappings automatically. So this UI, which is kind of ugly, I mean, it's not the best UI, but like this names without the space, and because that's the names of the object properties. So what is this useful for? Well, rather than writing this HTML, you generate it first, then you copy and paste it in Action, and you make it nice. But you don't have to do the tedious thing of writing and using specific tags for the specific IDs for the various items and sub-items, and all that part is done automatically. Now, for a demo, it's fine to have the dynamic generator. Scaffolding is what Ruby on Rails does when you don't want to create a form. It generates a form for you. It's not very good, but it's working. And then you make it good. You make it look nice. Again, you give it to a graphic designer to make it work and be nice and everything else.